Aloha and good afternoon. I'm Dylan Ancheta in the Hawaii News Now Digital Center. Thanks for joining us here on this HNN special stream. Governor Josh Green is announcing an emergency proclamation over housing. Let's go ahead and take you live to the state capitol where he just stepped up to the podium.
And I just want to say mahalo to so many people that are here to share in this moment, and to the many, many people that have contributed to what has been a labor of love by our administration. You're going to hear from multiple speakers today, some in government, some in our cabinet, others who have really gone deep into the weeds on what we're talking about. But let me break it down for you. We don't have enough houses for our people. It's really that simple. That is where we are, and we are struggling and suffering because that is the case. If anyone says this isn't an emergency or this isn't a crisis, they are not aware of what's going on in Hawaii. I'm going to talk about the specifics, how many houses short we are, but if you need a nurse, a lot of times you can't find one because we don't have a house that they can afford. If you need a firefighter in an emergency, they may be on their second or third shift back to back because we have too few of them here in the state. If your child needs a teacher, and they don't have one in their classroom, and it's a temporary teacher or a sub for the third or fourth year in a row, it's probably because we don't have enough teachers in the state because they can't afford housing. And if that's not a crisis, if that's not an emergency, I don't know what is. So, here we go. We're going to take a major step forward today. We're taking executive action on our chronic housing crisis. We're doing it because in partnership with the legislature, in partnership with the council, in partnership with the people, we all know that this is a huge issue for us, and we need to give it a little oomph. It is a crisis. 1 out of 4 of our people can't cover housing expenses. By 2025, Hawaii will need 50,000 housing units to meet our current demand. That's right around the corner. That means we have to take serious action right away. It threatens our future. I talked about this a little bit right off the bat. Chronic shortage of nurses and teachers. Thousands and thousands of people that are the backbone of our society, they leave Hawaii because they can afford to live elsewhere, but they can't afford to live here. Residential exodus, including the majority of Native Hawaiians. I'm going to humbly ask the chair of the Senate Housing Committee to address this. Stanley's a good friend, and he has some great statistics for us on this matter. And then finally, the perpetuation of homelessness. When people are housing insecure, some fall into homelessness. Some don't leave the state. They become homeless. 20% of our homeless still work, but they're living out of a van. It's not acceptable. It's an emergency for them. Preferred future. We had the luxury of being with experts, not just in our state, but nationally. Marcia Fudge, HUD Secretary, came to Hawaii last week, and she shared with us that we have some of the greatest challenges in our country to find housing for people because it's very expensive here. And a lot of times salaries do not match what housing costs do. I'm not sure people are aware, but housing costs over the last, how many years, Nani? Went up 1,200%. So it's over 20 years, I believe. Housing costs went up 1,200%. Salaries went up only half of that. Half of that. So what do we have to do? We're going to have an emergency proclamation. We're having it today. It's going to last a year. We're going to break it out for you, what the details are. A couple things that you'll see. It creates this special working group, which is going to be run internally. We're taking a lot of the rules internal so that we can be accountable as an administration to deal with some of the red tape, to deal with some of the permitting challenges that we have in the universe here. We're streamlining development approvals. We're going to talk about the details of that, which means allowing some third parties to do some of this work, enabling measured flexibility during the review process, but at no time are we going to defy what's important, which is protecting our environment. Conservation land will not be affected. Important ag lands will not be affected. And I know that that's a concern. That's a real concern. That's why Nani and the team spoke to over 200 unique individuals over the course of the last 6 months. These were long conversations and hard conversations with people that we hold dear. Sierra Club, other conservation entities who we work with hand in hand on so many of our pieces of legislation, our policies. But when you tell me that the Hawaiian community is twice as likely to not have a home or to become homeless. How can we not find a way to use the land appropriately and house people? That's what we're talking about here. That's why we're lucky to have Kali Watson helping us to build out Department of Hawaiian Homeland's houses. So this is the working group. It will track and improve coordination between all of our agencies. We spend a lot of time with the mayors. The mayors are going to speak today as well. It will ensure that approved housing projects stay on schedule. We're going to crack the whip a little bit because people deserve to get these housing projects done if there's state taxpayer dollars involved. Regulations get streamlined. It's much more efficient when you have everything in-house, and we will guarantee, like I said, environmental stewardship and EV kapuna protection. That is critical to us. If there's a high risk, we'll pause. We are not going to do anything to take away the rights of the people that came before us. Critical to us. We'll be a little more flexible in our approval processes. It means we bring all the agencies together and we work in parallel so that we don't always do step A, then B, then C, then D, then E. We're going to get a lot of things going at the same time. And we designate resources internally to move much faster. There's a lot of other people that are going to talk today. But let me just one more time impress it upon everybody. The single most common comment to me over the last 2 years was I can't find housing for people I care about. And I'm going to leave soon, or my children are going to leave if I can't do something. That means we don't have the loved ones that we need around us. We don't have the services that we have to have in society, whether it's educators, healthcare workers, public safety officials. This is a safety consideration. That's why we're doing this today, and I will pause there. We'll have plenty of time for questions, but I feel so honored to be followed next by my partner, Mayor Blangiardi.
Good afternoon, and aloha. I want to say first and foremost that the city and county is completely aligned with the intent of the governor's proclamation. You know, we know, just as he indicated, the math doesn't work on any level. No matter what the set of metrics might be, or for that matter, whatever DMA that you want to apply it against, what is going on is an incredible amount of strain and suffering amongst our people. And so this is an emergency proclamation being applied against a long-term systemic problem. So I'm looking forward to the fact that we can ease some of the regulatory burden that we've had and perhaps be able to bypass some of the laws. We need to get into the details so we can move faster and we can move quicker as best we possibly can to address what I consider right now, from the city standpoint, our greatest priority is to be able to provide a housing. And believe me, there are plenty of priorities. This one is more equal than the rest because of how it impacts our people. So I'm honored to be here today, very honored to support the governor. I applaud the fact that he has wanted to take this step. It's been long needed. I think much good will come from it. Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay. Mahalo, Governor, and Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi. At this time, we have Maui County Mayor Richard Bisson, who will deliver his remarks virtually.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Governor Green for his leadership on the critical needs affecting our island. Today's actions will help to accelerate our solutions and ultimately put more of our kama'aina into homes. In the past few months since taking office, my team and I have crisscrossed throughout our county, spending time on Molokai, Lanai, and Maui. The distress of not being able to find and afford a place to rent or purchase is at a crisis point. It paralyzes businesses and services who lose their employees due to a lack of housing. It displaces families, contributes to a shortage in much-needed workforce personnel, such as our teachers, our nurses, the trades, firefighters, police officers, and has forced some of our community's working class into becoming unsheltered, not earning enough to afford a home, even with more than one job. Many of our youth no longer believe that they will be able to remain in Hawaii or return home to their island after finishing college out of state simply because they will not be able to afford a place of their own. This caused our people a degree of hardship unseen in our contemporary history. So I too applaud this bold move of the governor, the rest of our state agencies and partners When we make more homes available for our people, we uplift our communities. We offer a sense of belonging, security, and dignity that our residents rightfully deserve. I believe we're building more than homes, we're building communities. So mahalo.
Mahalo, Mayor Bisson. Up next, we have Mayor Mitch Roth with Hawaii County.
Aloha. Thank you very much, and want to thank the governor and his staff and also the other mayors for making this happen. We've been having conversations for a while. In Hawaii County, we've been focused on sustainability, and to me, one of the big things that means is the ability to allow our kids to raise their kids here in Hawaii. And you know, that doesn't happen unless you have housing. So that has been our number one focus. When we came into our administration, we had about 1,200 houses in the affordable housing pipeline. Today, we're at about 6,300. This proclamation will allow a lot of those houses in that pipeline to move a lot quicker. We've come to a time in our history where we have more Hawaiians living out of our state than in our state. As we focus on this, you know, as we lose our Hawaiian kids, we lose our culture, we lose the whole meaning of what it is to be living in this state. And so, again, we applaud the governor for what he's doing. Governor mentioned about the emergency nature. We're having a hard time on our island of finding people to work, whether it's in our hospitals or our healthcare, our schools, or even in our hotels. This is really a huge issue. And as we lose our people because they can't afford places to live, you know, it makes so much sense to have this. So, again, congratulations to the governor, to all the agencies that are a part of this, the fellow mayors who have been talking to the governor since day one of his administration on making this kind of thing happen. Thank you very much. Aloha.
Aloha. We do apologize for the technical difficulty, but I'm sure you guys you're very aware of how Mayor Roth looks like, so not to worry. Moving forward with our program, please help me welcome Senator Stanley Chang, Senate Housing Committee Chair.
Good afternoon. The whole reason I wanted to get into politics in the first place was because of my dad. He was a UH professor, a state employee with one salary, and he was able to buy a house and put my brother and me through school and give us these incredible opportunities. Today, for me as a state employee, to buy that same house would cost me over 40 years of my entire salary. As a result, we have one of the highest rates of population exodus in the country. We have 13,000 high school seniors graduating every single year in this state, and we only build about 2,000 housing units every year. So as a result, most of them have to leave, and they can never come back because we are falling farther and farther behind every single year. Altogether, we have 14,500 people leaving Hawaii every single year. That means one local person is leaving every 36 minutes in Hawaii. And if that were going to be caused by an earthquake or a tsunami or a flood or a hurricane, there would be no doubt in anyone's minds in this room that that would be an emergency, that time would stop for the state government until we had solved that problem. Today, time is stopping. This is a historic moment. This is the legacy moment, Governor Green, for you and your entire administration. If your administration ends today, you will be remembered as the governor who took not just step 1, but steps 1 through 500 in ending this housing shortage. You have set a historic benchmark, not just for the state of Hawaii, that all of these governors on the walls around us would be shocked to hear, but nationwide, I don't think there's another state in the entire country in decades that has taken a step as sweeping as this. And so for Governor Hochul of New York or Governor Newsom of California, I think that they will now have a new benchmark to reach to. And the entire Yes in My Backyard or YIMBY movement nationwide will have a new benchmark to reach up to, thanks to you, Governor Green. The laundry list of items that this emergency proclamation that you're signing today addresses, whether it's the LUC or permitting or zoning or school impact fees, discretionary review by the county councils. These are at the top of the lists year after year, decade after decade, for the private developers who build the housing that house the future generations of Hawaii's people. And we are taking an action today to cut through many, if not most of them. So in conclusion, I just want to thank you, Governor Green, for your visionary leadership. I hope that your counterparts across the country are watching today. And to those high school seniors who recently graduated, hope is coming, change is coming. The housing shortage has met its match, and we will end it in the near future. Thank you.
Mahalo, Senator Chang. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Representative Troy Hashimoto, Chair of the House Committee on Housing.
Well, good afternoon. Building housing is incredibly difficult, as we know, and this proclamation is an experiment to see if we can build faster in a shorter period of time by easing many rules and processes to help alleviate an incredibly huge crisis. Monitoring and understanding what works and what doesn't will be critically important, as at some point we will have to go back to regular order, but we need permanent fixes which will have to be changed by the legislature and the county councils to see long-term progress. I believe I speak for both Senator Chang and myself that this will be our challenge. However, if we can see results through this proclamation, it will make our jobs easier in passing longer-term legislation. I commend both the governor and the chief housing officer for all of your work and your entire team on your boldness in trying something different. And it is my hope to see substantial progress in this space, because I think, as everyone has mentioned before, we truly are in a crisis. And I commend the governor for taking this bold step forward, and the legislature will be there with you and to try and enact long-term change. So thank you very much.
Mahalo, Representative Hashimoto. As you folks can see, we have true state-city partnership, community partnerships, and that is due to, in large part, the manawahine of the hour. It is my greatest honor to introduce our Chief Housing Officer, Nani Medeiros.
Aloha, good afternoon, everyone. Just a few comments to add. I think our previous speakers have pretty much said it all. A few facts I want to take you through. Hawaii has the highest median home price in the U.S. Our housing costs are almost 3 times the national average. We have the highest cost of living. We have the highest level of housing regulations across the country, and those regulations in Hawaii add between $233,000 and $325,000 to every new home. It takes $252,000 now in annual income to be able to afford the median priced home. Regulations are helping us price our own people out. Our workers are leaving, our keiki are leaving, our Native Hawaiians are moving to the continent. And we have to take bold steps now to change that. I'd like to introduce and acknowledge my team, without whom I could not have gotten here today. I think you're all over here. Please raise your hand just to be acknowledged. Mahalo, mahalo piha for all your hard work. And Chico must be somewhere else. Chico's back here. I want to put a real face to some of the people that we've talked about today, not being able to come home or having to leave because they can't afford the home. Nurses, first responders, construction workers, government employees, many of whom I'm sure are in this room right now and either don't own your own home or are paying 40 to 50% of your income to live or rent in your home. Hotel workers. Well, I have a young intern on my team. Her name is Kiki. Kiki, can you raise your hand? Kiki is born and raised here, local girl, and she's currently a sophomore in college. She's studying environmental justice. I want people like Kiki to come home. If somebody's going to protect our aina and our home that we were born and raised in, I want it to be the local girl who went to college to study it. So I feel very committed personally and professionally to do what we can to solve the puzzle bring our keiki home, have them do great things here in their homeland. Thank you to everybody who's been a part of this journey and helped us get to this point with the emergency proclamation. We have a lot of subject matter experts in the room joining us today, many of whom we consulted with through the last 6 months, who will be here for questions. Thank you.
Mahalo nani. See, I told you, mana wahine. Next, I would like to introduce Hakeem Juan Safi, Executive Director of the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Please welcome Hakeem.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm standing here as a public servant who does see the grief and despair whenever we open our wait list. Thousands of people line up with the hopes that they may get one of those dozen units that become available. But also as a father, and it hits home, whose son just a few months ago said, I'm not coming back to Hawaii, I'm staying in Pittsburgh. You all know why. It's always different when you look at the numbers and as a professional, but when you hear that directly from your son, and the only reason he's not coming because he does not want to live with his father. He's 26 years old.
Pittsburgh is a good city, though.
It is, but nothing like Hawaii, though. Yeah, nothing like Hawaii. So, but I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, a tremendous amount of work has been put into this. I've seen Nani, the team, Brooke, Gov, multiple meetings with all of the people. The second, this EP doesn't satisfy everyone. There are a lot of people who want no changes whatsoever, keep going. And there are people who wanted a lot more changes, and they were put down, said, no, we need just to do what is balanced. And also it's balanced with the fact of the governor ensuring that all the departments and state agencies are working collaboratively and working together. I've seen the best working relationship, and I've been here for 13 years in state government. And second, last thing, because I only have 1 minute, I spent 2 minutes already. Emergency proclamations do work. And thank you, Governor, for the homeless emergency proclamation. And I just was well let you know that over 325 people will be moving into permanent housing because of that. We would not have been able to do that work and get them before the end of this year. So I'll stop at that. But again, tremendous amount of work. Congratulations, Gov.
Mahalo, Hakeem. Moving on, allow me to present Kali Watson, Director of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
Good afternoon. Way back before I took this job, I talked about the need for emergency proclamation relative to Hawaiians. And, we're here today because that's what the governor has decided to do. And that's one reason why I took this job, is because we have somebody that appreciates, understands, and is willing to do something that hasn't been done in the past. When we look at the 100 years of the existence of this particular Hawaiian Homes Commission Act, it's been a pretty dismal record that we look at, less than 100 per year over the 100 years. So now's the time to really move it forward, and I thank the legislature for giving us $600 million to do the job. For those that question whether there's an emergency proclamation, let me just say, Hawaiians are dying out there, without a doubt. 40% of the homeless are Hawaiians. 40% of the incarcerated are Hawaiians. We have the highest percentage of health issues, the highest unemployment rate. We have the lowest median household incomes, the lowest home ownership rates, as well as overcrowdedness. We have 29,000 on our waiting list. So do we need an emergency proclamation to move it forward? Yes, I think we do. And I think the solution is in housing. And the only way we're going to respond in a more expeditious way is through this emergency proclamation. So I look forward to using it as another tool. I look forward to using the $600 million. I look forward to working with all of you out there to let us work collectively to address this issue. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Kali. And our final speaker, we got through that. Finally, I'd like to introduce Dean Minakami, Executive Director of the Hawaii Housing, Finance, and Development Corporation.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start by first commending the governor and Nani for this bold action. It really is a meaningful action that we believe will result in a meaningful number of new units coming on quicker. At HHFDC, our focus is on providing workforce housing. So that's units at 60% AMI to 140% AMI. So that's like your teachers, your carpenters, nurses, all those folks who are struggling to find housing in Hawaii now. One of the programs that we implement to expedite projects is called our 2-1H Expedited Processing Program, which provides waivers to bring projects online more quickly. It can reduce the entitlement period from several years to just a few months. So we're very excited that this proclamation makes that process even quicker. Also very good as having the Beyond Barriers working group, because that will bring together our county and state agencies, because that will help us to identify those roadblocks and move them ahead. And also the targeted suspension of laws and rules, which will reduce the cost of housing by making them come online more quickly. So in closing, just like to commend the governor and thank Nani.
Mahalo, Dean. Without further ado, may I have the governor, speakers, and any other invited stakeholders to gather for the emergency proclamation signing. Thereafter, we will immediately be going into live Q&A. Alrighty?
I got you. Okay. Yep. All right. Elect an emergency room doc. Expect us to take on emergencies, all right? So here we are. This proclamation today on the 17th of July, 2023, is meant to help us build 50,000 houses. So let's go get it. All right. Thank you, guys. There it is. This is for you for sure, Jace. Okay, so we're gonna take questions now, and we may dance in and out for those who have different expertise. But I'll stay up here with the team, and I just as you tee up your questions, I wanted to say just a couple additional words. There are already 50,000 units in the pipeline that are somehow stuck, okay? Which gives us an incredible opportunity to unstick them, just as Dean alluded to, putting everybody in the same room with some flexibility. We've already made our commitments to build a lot of this housing. We have great leaders, from the building community, from the carpenters, from architects or engineers. We can do it. We can do it. But for one reason or another, we get held up. And then generation after generation just sees those numbers fall by the wayside. It's not much more complicated than that. This is really meant in an open way. We are going to put so much information out there to share. There will be so many conversations about what we're actually doing in real time. I don't think anyone should have any concerns. But that's why we're here to answer questions also. So of those 50,000 units, 60% are already in the affordable category. Nani tells me another 14,000 units will likely enter that list very quickly. So we will have the units that are available to us to build. So if I may, I'd like to call on our building community, please step up now. Please come to the table and build these projects for us. We will be so grateful.
Governor, our first question comes from Dan Nicosto with the Honolulu Star Advertiser.
Governor, no offense, could I ask Mayor Boyd, do you already a question?
Yes.
I like that.
I prefer that. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Dan.
Mayor, can you, under the 1 year life of emergency proclamation as is, how do you see the city's role? How do you see it easing the pressure on DPP and all the critics?
Well, I don't know if it's going to ease the pressure on DPP.
Sports analogy, so I can understand.
In a sports analogy. Well, I talked a little bit earlier about being able to move better and quicker and faster, right? So we're looking to be able to bypass some laws that get in the way. We are, the regulatory burden has a lot to do with what the governor just said and what's been keeping things from being built, if you will, that are in the pipeline, and that we have to overcome. If anything, it increases the pressure on DPP, and we understand that. We're working as fast and as hard as we can, but we understand that that's been a bottleneck. And so time is money. And we live with that each and every day. So the best promise I can make is that we are focused on that each and every day. The metrics are getting better within the department. It's a long way from where we want it to be. We're not close to being satisfied. But the fact of the matter is, this has been decades in the making, just as we're addressing this overall problem. So as Senator Chang said, it's a historic moment, and I believe in those kinds of moments. You come to a point in time when you say, this is enough. And what are we going to do about it? And that's the difference. Quite honestly, if you want something in football, it's not about winning and losing. It's about whether you can stand losing. And the guys who can't stand losing what really create the championship teams. And that's what this is about. We can't take this anymore. Our people don't deserve that anymore. And we're here today to use this tool to try to do something about it because we're done putting up with it.
But you see easing duplication between similar state and city rules and regulations?
I will tell you that to the extent possible that we can ease that burden. I know it's part of the reason why Denise Sarah Matsubara is right here in the room right now. We brought her over from the state. Quite honestly, if you want a sports gym, we didn't have enough coaches on our end of the building, on our side of the street, let me put it that way, who really understood it. It's a complex issue, as we know. It's not complicated, it's complex. And we needed some people who really understood this. I would tell you in my short 2.5 years in office, this has been the most complicated thing to try and learn, understand, and then implement. So this is going to facilitate, and to the extent, I said the night that this man got graduated, he got elected. Graduated too. He graduated too. I said that night that he asked me, called me up on the stage. I said from that stage that people could expect unprecedented collaboration between us, between the state and the city. And I stand by that as a major commitment because I believe in that relationship is going to facilitate and make things happen. So we're in a discovery mode. Can't tell you we've done this before, but I can tell you we are up for the challenge.
I got something for you guys, too. You're going to like this. So for the mayor's purpose, and one of the things that we are doing here is we are adding capacity for third-party review so that he can, because they have a ton of work here. As we know, a million out of our 1.4 million people are living on Oahu. So we've already worked closely with our union leadership to make sure that they were okay with that, because we want everyone on the same page. So we are going to suspend some of the restrictions on third-party review so that we can actually bring in extra people. In other words, to extend the metaphor of the mayor, bring a lot of starting people and other all-stars off the bench from other teams till we get these houses built.
Governor, our next question comes from Sabrina, Hawaii Public Radio.
Hi, I probably have a question for Nani.
Yes. Yes. No problem.
Thank you. So with the working group, I understand it's not policy driven. Is it a public group? Is it going to be private conversations? I also understand from the proclamation that people would be submitting their applications to the group directly. How sort of does this work? What is the timeline? How does it work with counties?
So the Build Beyond Barriers Working Group will be made up of both public and private sector members. There are 22 members in all, and I believe the details are listed in the emergency rules that accompany the proclamation. The emergency proclamation also creates criteria for the application to the working group for approval / certification of a project. And once certified or approved, then it can move forward with some of the exemptions and suspensions under the emergency proclamation. There are 12 specific criteria that are laid out in the emergency rules, and we feel it's very thorough. We started with looking at what did our housing agencies require for project approvals for developers who applied to them for any kind of housing project, and we built upon that. We built in additional things for public input. We built in additional things for an early assessment of environmental impact, of cultural impact. So we think it's a pretty thorough request that we have. Then the working group is going to be responsible for reviewing those applications collectively. We also have recognized we might need to have sub-working groups within that Build Beyond Barriers working group where we can really dive in at the county level to specific projects in different counties, if necessary. And the emergency proclamation also provides the flexibility to the lead housing officer to invite subject matter experts into the working group or conversation if further analysis is required before approval or certification.
How often do you see, is it a kind of in-person meetings, virtual meetings? How often do you see yourself meeting?
It's an in-person meeting, and it will have to be as often. How often it happens is going to be dependent on how many project applications we receive. If we have to meet every 2 weeks because we've gotten a lot of applications, I see that as a win. But I also do recognize that everybody's really busy with their existing workloads. So we're going to try and be as efficient as we can. Our initial meeting is scheduled at this point for sometime in August. We want to spend the next 4 to 5 weeks working with each person who's on the working group, giving them advance notice. They've already received an initial email invitation, but we want to, make sure we can all make the date that we choose. Governor's able to attend and join us for the first meeting, and we'll be moving forward from August on.
And is the application portal open? How do people?
So to start with, we're not going with a application where everybody fills out the same form. We do expect the developers who come to apply under the emergency proclamation are experienced. And we worked closely with our housing agencies and our deputy attorney generals who staff the housing agencies to get a sense that developers who come to apply under this EP, they'll know what we're asking for in our criteria. So we're going to start with allowing developers to come and submit how they want to submit. If we get to a point where we have evolved and we are able to design a form that can basically fit every project, or every project component can make their project fit into the application, then we'll consider doing that. What we will have available online on our website when it launches are examples of what a good submission to the working group when outlining your public input plan, your environmental impact plan, your 6E, SHIFT-E evaluations. We're having examples of what all of those things look like online to give project proponents, an idea of, here's your best chance of success.
And I think it's important to add that the membership on that committee is broad. In fact, it includes all the leaders that we could really recognize in this space so that they can immediately take their experience and weigh in and approve projects. The goal is to approve projects provided that they are both in the public interest and also that they do live up to the values we have about the environment. So, for example, we have the leadership from the House and Senate that will be there. We have the Sierra Club that will be there. We have Nani, of course, that will be there. I will periodically be there, which I think perhaps may be unusual, but I hear from a lot of people, and they tell me they need housing in this part of the state or the other. We can lean on our mayors, who are very close to the problem. So the idea, if you kind of want to know exactly what this is, wrapping a bow around it, it's putting everyone in the room at the same time and saying, okay, that project makes sense. Go forward.
Governor, our next question comes from Sue Yorton with Civil Beat.
Hi there. So following up on Sabrina's question, is the working group and the committees, are they subject to sunshine law?
I think the answer is no, although we do intend to be transparent in every way. So we'll be telling people who applied, we will be sharing with them the processes that they've gone through, the environmental concerns that were raised, and we're going to err on the side of having less in the way of projects that would raise any concerns. It's also why we set some very basic standards, like we're not building in conservation land. We know that that's not what this is about. This is about building housing where people already feel housing should be built. I would suspect there's going to be a lot of TOD in this process. One of the processes that we note, for instance, the legislature needs to get together very frequently when they make laws. They have hearings that are public. We put things out. Our administration puts a lot of information out, of course. I won't be surprised if we have WEPA requests about what's going on. That's okay. We want to share this information. We just don't want to spend 19 years doing it. We've got 3.5 years to build a lot of houses, and I think that's the commitment I have to make. But any questions you have, we will give you frequent updates. I'm looking forward to that, in fact, because we want to show people that milestones are being met.
You talk about a 1-year period for the order to be in effect. What about extensions? Do you foresee having extensions?
Well, we may, but the main point is that anything that's approved in this year, this first year, will then be allowable going forward. Obviously, people are not going to have their housing projects completed in the year. So what we're hopeful is that we will greenlight this 50,000 plus number of units through the committee, through the Build Beyond Barriers Committee, and they will then be ensconced and protected by the emergency proclamation. And then over the course of 3 to 5 years, all those projects will get done. I want to keep things more open right now because I think if it works well, that's great. I will say this, though. We've begun already to prepare a piece of legislation to submit next year in January that will be essentially the nuts and bolts of this emergency proclamation, which we will then humbly ask the Senate and House to entertain. I think that this is going to go very well, and it may very well be that a large part of this emergency proclamation becomes law for a period of, say, 3 years, probably with a semi-tight sunset date. Just because, as I think our House chair said, we're kind of test driving a new idea. We're experimenting with a new idea. Now, each of these pieces has been debated at great length, but someone, as Chair Chang said, had to step into the fray and say, we're doing it. I'm willing to be that person just because I've got a 16-year-old at home who's going to go off to college in a year and a half. I know her mother wants her back here. I think Stanley's begun procreating. He's someday going to need this. Yeah. So we're very serious about this.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So you mentioned a 3 to 5 year timeline to get things built. Is there anything that would prevent a builder from getting the entitlements under this emergency proclamation and not doing anything for 3 to 5 years, and maybe it's 10 years or way into the future? Is there anything to stop that from happening?
Thank you, Stu. Under the emergency proclamation, projects that are certified by the working group have to begin construction within 3 years of executing the development agreement with the state. Okay.
Yes. And, I think that some of the things, and you can read the details of the proclamation. It's, I think, about 11 pages long. You'll see that we're being aggressive. We're waiving impact fees because they are causing extra cost right now, and we need the housing too badly. We're waiving some of the provisions on general excise tax, which actually was already in statute, but we're making sure that that's clarified now. We're waiving some of the restrictions on the amount of land that that historically was allowable for building because we just want to get going. We have to build this housing because every year that we don't, or every year that we have so many additional requirements, you're talking about $200,000 or $300,000 extra for each unit. And as soon as we build up enough inventory, you will see housing prices drop significantly. I was glad that HHFDC is here because I just think that also we're focusing on people that actually work here. That's where these houses are going to go. There are other projects, though, that weren't even mentioned today. Remember, we approved $50 million. That was Michelle Kadani's appropriation for teacher housing. It's going to be, helped by this proclamation. As Kali said, he's got $600 million to spend. He can do it so much more quickly under the emergency proclamation. and Mo is here, who has just signed, I think, a letter of intent or a memorandum of understanding for the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. There we have 12,000 units that we are planning to build over the next 10 years. Imagine if we start surging with our inventory. It'll just make it a lot easier to find affordable housing. But you will be watching us, and I appreciate that. We need to have people giving us input as we go. This is not about a less oversight situation. It's not about doing things without sunshine. It's about doing them faster in where Nani can call a meeting next week and say, I've got 3 proposals. They seem to meet all the standards. They had these small hang-ups. Let's get over ourselves and build some housing. That's really where we are.
Governor, next line of questions will come from Mahealani Richardson, Hawaii News Now.
Hi, Governor. As you know, the Sierra Club has called this emergency proclamation alarming, and they're concerned about environmental and cultural protection laws. What can you say to ease their fears about these laws?
Well, it is alarming. The alarm is that we can't. That is the actual alarm. When we talk about environmental protection, that's what our administration has been about from day one. Climate impact fees, over $100 million for climate protection, me speaking at the UN about sustainability plans. Our record is environmental protection. That is what we are. But the record of building housing and housing being opposed by groups across the state is actually more alarming because we're losing 14,000 people a year. We don't have nurses to take care of people who have heart attacks. We don't have public school teachers to educate my seventh grader. That's the alarm. But we also are welcoming Sierra Club, since you mentioned, and others right into the working group. We're just running government differently, which is something that I think a lot of people are going to have to get used to. When you do things this aggressively, but with everybody in the room, it is an absolutely different system, and that's what Chair Chang was referring to. But these are issues that affect all people, and a huge majority of our citizens want us to build housing. I say we will err on the side of doing things like TOD. I mean it. That's what we're really talking about. Also, as Nani pointed out, these units, tens of thousands, are already in the pipeline and have been going forward. But then if someone can object at the last moment, pause it for 18 months, another 6 months, the projects die. And let's just be totally clear. Then we don't have housing for our kids. These are the alarming problems. And so, utter respect for all of our advocates, but it's not good enough if we're going to take care of this state.
What's the breakup between affordable housing and a housing with these numbers?
Well, in the first 50,000 units, 60% of them were already in the affordable housing category. So 30,000 units in the affordable housing space. Hakeem's units are 100%. Actually, I can't even describe them as affordable. These are Section 8 housing and housing for individuals who are, in economic despair. We're going to do everything we can to build housing across the spectrum, but the lion's share of the housing is going to be the affordable category. The real trick here is that building tens of thousands of units changes the economics of housing completely, so that we actually shift our inventory to a space where now, because of the number of units, we actually can have affordable markets. Right now, we don't have them. Right now, there's just simply too much competition for too few units, so all the costs are artificially high. We're aiming to bring down the costs of housing across the board by having, 60, 50,000 units built. That's what's been missing for so long, the macroeconomics on this. And so, we will help people in many different ways. Of course, Kali's solutions are going to be for the Native Hawaiian community who have a very large number of individuals that are struggling economically, 2 to 1. And so that's another reason why we're doing this. But all of this is really just a common sense pause moment where we say, what in the hell have we been doing when our kids are leaving? So I don't know anybody who can look me in the face and argue that we should continue doing what we've been doing, which is building very few houses while lots of kids leave. I just don't think we can do that. Okay, so again, thank you for indulging us today. We told you we were going to do things a little differently. This is it. We waited 6 months. We studied the problem very carefully. Nani spoke to hundreds of individuals. Every expert we could find, we took their input. And if we didn't talk to you, please give us more input. Whether you are a strong environmentalist who really is a brother or sister of ours, or a developer that's been hungry for years to get a project going because they have a solution, perhaps like Stanley's, which is now passed into law. We appreciate every possible opportunity to build over 50,000 houses for our people. And so hopefully we're standing here 3, 4, 6 years from now, and we're asking ourselves, how do we get this many houses built so fast? Thank you, guys. Aloha. Okay.
Well, there it was, a press conference with Governor Josh Green and all the state officials there. Of course, they are talking about affordable housing and taking on new initiatives. Of course, this emergency proclamation aims to expedite the housing process and get more units built into the market as soon as possible. The emergency proclamation lasts for about a year. He signed it today. It has a 1-year period, and the state, again, is doing all that they can to address the concerns of housing. Let's take one more live look there at the state capitol. The mayor, along with the governor and other city and elected leaders, are there for a photo op following the signing of this emergency proclamation. We heard a lot of issues come up here, including the concerns from environmentalists. The governor saying that they have consulted with the Sierra Group on this, and while the concerns do remain, he says that he acknowledges the need for housing here in Hawaii and the bigger concern of keeping local people here in the islands. Our Mahealani Richardson was there at that press conference gathering all the details, and we'll have more on this story on later editions of Hawaii News Now. We also want to go ahead and give you an update right now on Tropical Storm Calvin. Let's go ahead and take a look right here. This is the latest forecast track as of 2 p.m. this afternoon. Give me a second here if I can pull up this right here. This is the latest models from our weather team. As you can see, the threat for rain and storms in the medium to moderate level there. Strong winds, a little bit lesser of the concern. The storm surge, not all that much. Low level there for the threat. And we are also monitoring all that we can with this storm. Our KC-1 is heading there to Hawaii Island to essentially ride out the storm there over the next 3 days. Once again, we are expecting the most severe impacts from Calvin to arrive sometime on Wednesday, maybe late Tuesday into Wednesday night. Let me go ahead and pull up the latest forecast from our friends over at the National Hurricane Center, if you'll give me just a moment here. All right, so it seems that Tropical Storm Calvin has maximum sustained winds of 50 miles per hour and is moving westward at 22 miles per hour. Again, a tropical storm warning is in effect for Hawaii County. A tropical storm watch means that tropical storm conditions are possible within the next area in the case, 36 to 48 hours. Of course, again, we are keeping a very close eye on Tropical Storm Calvin as our friends over there on Hawaii Island remain under a tropical storm watch. And this graphic here shows the storm force winds and the predicted possibilities there. The darkest colors show the strongest winds at the center of the storm, and it shows how it kind of pans out from there. So all of this information we are posting on our mobile app and website there. Once again, this is the track right here. Our severe weather team has been keeping a very close eye on the storm and its movements, and as you can see, Hawaii Island is expected to get the brunt of the storm there. So we thank you so much for tuning in to this special extended stream on the emergency housing proclamation, as well as Tropical Storm Calvin. We will work to update our website with all of the new information that we just got, and we'll continue to bring you the very latest on air and online. Once again, I'm Dylan and Chetza in the Hawaii News Now Digital Center. Have a great rest of your afternoon.